Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the January 2022 City Council meeting. As we all know, COVID-19 cases continue to remain high in our region, and for that reason, we are not conducting in-person meetings until further notice. We continue to offer meeting access to the public by, one, posting meeting information and materials on the city's website at cityofrochester.gov/public meetings, and two, streaming our meetings live on City 12 TV and the City Council's YouTube and Facebook pages. I encourage anyone who has not received a COVID-19 vaccine to discuss this with their physician and to visit monroecounty.gov/health-covid19-vaccine for more information. The meeting will come to order, and I ask the clerk to call the roll.
Sure. Councilmember Gruber.
Here.
Councilmember Harris.
Here.
Councilmember Lightfoot.
Present, ma'am.
Councilmember Martin.
Here.
Councilmember Patterson.
Here.
Councilmember Pio.
Here.
Councilmember Smith.
Here.
Vice President Lupien.
Here.
President Melendez.
Here.
Thank you.
I would like to ask the council to join me in a moment of silence. Thank you. Councilmember Patterson, will you please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Next, we have the approval of the minutes of the December meeting and the organizational meeting by Councilmember Gruber.
Resolved that the minutes of the regular meeting on December 14th, 2021, and the organizational meeting on January 3rd, 2022, be approved as published in the official sheets of the proceedings.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? The motion carries.
The clerk will enter the affirmative vote of 9-0 into the record. The following documents are hereby directed to be received and filed. The council submits disclosure of interest forms from Councilmember Gruber on introductory number 4, Councilmember Harris on introductory number 2, Councilmember Patterson on introductory number 5, and Councilmember Melendez on introductory number 29.
Thank you. These documents will be received and filed. It is time for the presentation and reference of petitions and any other communications. Are there any petitions? Okay, if there are none, we will now move on to the reports of standing committees and action thereon. Councilmember Gruber, the Finance Committee report, please.
Absolutely, President Melendez. To the council, the Finance Committee recommends for adoption the following entitled legislation. Introductory number 1, authorizing administrative tax cancellations and refunds of $1,000 or less for 2022. Introductory number 2, a bond ordinance of the City of Rochester, New York, authorizing the issuance of $19,955,000 bonds of said city to finance the cost of improvements to specified city school district schools. Introductory number 3, a resolution approving appointments to the Rochester Civil Service Commission. Introductory number 4, a resolution approving appointment and reappointment to the Rochester Public Library Board of Trustees. Introductory number 5, authorizing agreements and amending the 2021-22 budget for the Financial Empowerment Center initiative. Introductory number 44, a resolution reappointing marriage officer. This report was respectfully committed by Councilmember Mike Patterson, Councilmember Kim Smith, Council Vice President Mary Lupien, Council President Miguel Melendez, and myself, Councilmember Mitch Gruber.
Thank you, Councilmember Gruber. That report will be received, filed, and published, and we'll proceed with the vote. Introductory number 1, legislation authorizing administrative tax cancellations and refunds of $1,000 or less for 2022. All in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. Motion carries.
The clerk will enter the affirmative vote of 9-0 into the record.
Introductory number 2 is a bond ordinance authorizing $19,955,000 bonds to finance the costs of improvements to specified city school district schools. This requires a roll call.
Councilmember Gruber,
Yes.
Councilmember Harris,
Abstain.
Councilmember Lightfoot,
Yes.
Councilmember Martin,
Yes.
Councilmember Patterson,
Yes.
Councilmember Pio,
Yes.
Councilmember Smith,
Yes.
Vice President Lupian,
Yes.
President Melendez.
Yes.
That motion passes, and the clerk will enter the affirmative vote of 801 into the record with Councilmember Harris abstaining.
Introductory number 3 is a resolution approving appointments to the Rochester Civil Service Commission. All in favor, please say aye.
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 All opposed, say nay. The motion carries.
The clerk will enter the affirmative vote of 9-0 into the record.
Introductory number 4 is a resolution approving an appointment and a reappointment to the Rochester Public Library Board of Trustees. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. The motion carries.
The clerk will enter the affirmative vote of 9-0 into the record.
Introductory number 5, legislation authorizing grant agreements and amending the 2021-22 budget for the Financial Empowerment Center Initiative. All in favor, please say aye.
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 All opposed, say nay. The motion carries.
Council President, I have to abstain.
Thank you for that. Motion carries.
Clerk will enter the affirmative vote of 801 into the record with Councilmember Patterson abstaining.
Introductory number 44 is a resolution reappointing a marriage officer. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. The motion carries.
The clerk will enter the affirmative vote of 9-0 into the record.
Councilmember Patterson, the Neighborhood and Business Development Committee report, please.
Thank you, President Melendez. The Neighborhood and Business Development Committee recommends for adoption the following entitled legislation. Introductory number 6, authorizing lease for a portion of 1 Mount Hope Avenue. Introductory number 9, amending ordinance number 96-9 and extending the term of the payment in lieu of taxes agreement for the Woodward Affordable Housing Project. Introductory number 45, amending the municipal code with respect to elevators, escalators, and other conveyances. Introductory number 46, local law discontinuing the elevator examination board. The Neighborhood and Business Development Committee recommends for consideration the following entitled legislation. Introductory number 10, amending the zoning map by changing the zoning classification of 10-10.5 Jones Street, or is that avenue? Left off, period. Street designation. Introductory number 11, amending the zoning map by changing the zoning classification of properties on Merchants Road. Introductory number 12, amending the zoning map by changing the zoning classification of 350 Benton Street. The Neighborhood and Business Development Committee recommends the following entitled legislation to be held in committee. Introductory number 7, authorizing a grant application related to the CARES Act Community Development Block Grant funding for the rehabilitation of affordable rental housing. Introductory number 8, authorizing the extension of payment in lieu of tax agreements for qualifying affordable housing projects. This report is respectfully submitted by Council members Lachey Harris, Kimberly Smith, Vice President Mary Lupian, President Miguel Melendez Jr., and myself, Michael A. Patterson.
Thank you, Councilmember Patterson. That report will be received, filed, and published, and will proceed with the vote. Introductory number 6, legislation authorizing a lease for a portion of 1 Mount Hope Avenue. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. The motion carries.
Clerk will enter the affirmative vote of 9-0 into the record.
Introductory number 9, amending ordinance number 96-9 and extending the term of the payment in lieu of taxes agreement for the Woodward Affordable Housing Project. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. Motion carries.
The clerk will enter the affirmative vote of 9-0 into the record.
Introductory number 10, legislation amending the zoning map by changing the zoning classification of 10-10.5 Jones Avenue. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. Motion carries.
Clerk will enter the affirmative vote of 9-0 into the record.
Introductory number 11, legislation amending the zoning map by changing the zoning classification of properties on Merchants Road. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. Motion carries.
The clerk will enter the affirmative vote of 9-0 into the record.
Introductory number 12, legislation amending the zoning map by changing the zoning classification of 350 Benton Street. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. Motion carries.
Clerk will enter the affirmative vote of 9-0 into the record.
Introductory number 45, legislation amending the municipal code with respect to elevators, escalators, and other conveyances. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. The motion carries.
The clerk will enter the affirmative vote of 9-0 into the record.
Introductory number 46 is a local law discontinuing the elevator examining board. This requires a roll call vote.
Councilmember Gruber,
Yes.
Councilmember Harris,
Yes.
Councilmember Lightfoot,
Yes.
Councilmember Martin,
Yes.
Councilmember Patterson,
Yes.
Councilmember Pio,
Yes.
Councilmember Smith,
Yes.
Vice President Lupian,
Yes.
President Melendez.
Yes, the motion carries.
The clerk will enter the affirmative vote of 9-0 into the record.
Chairperson Patterson, do you have a motion on introductory number 7, legislation authorizing a grant application related to the CARES Act Community Development Block Grant Funds?
At this time, I offer a motion to discharge this item from committee.
I put a motion.
It's been properly moved and seconded. Let's vote on discharging introductory number 7 from committee. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, say nay. Motion carries.
The clerk will enter the affirmative vote of 9-0 into the record for discharging introductory number 7.
President Melendez,
Vice President Lupian.
thank you. I have some comments to give about this introductory. Would you like me to give them now or after we make the motion?
I would prefer if you have comments, we do it before the vote, please.
Sorry, do you mean now?
Yes, please.
Okay, thank you. So, I spoke at the committee meetings about my concerns about this grant. I am supporting the application, but I just wanted to give some comments explaining my vote. So this program, if funded, would give landlords the funds needed to remediate lead in 1 to 4 unit buildings built before 1978, as we know. And lead ingestion is a serious issue, and I commend the administration for their intent to invest in remediation in order to ensure the health and safety of our community. However, the 5-year affordability provision, which is intended to create stability, can actually cause the unintended displacement of tenants in participating buildings. And this displacement can happen in 2 ways. One, because the grant can finance these significant updates to the rental units that would increase its value and increase the rent that can be charged. At the end of the 5-year affordability period, the unit will likely be raised to full market rate, and existing tenants would be displaced due to the large increase in rent. And 2, because stable and affordable housing is intended to give residents a foundation from which they can build a better financial situation, it is for foreseeable outcome that a tenant's income may increase during the 5-year affordability period. And the way this program is currently proposed, tenants would be displaced if their income rises over the limit. And so, an unintended outcome of this program could be to perpetuate the cycle of poverty by reversing any gains made through providing this affordable and stable housing for the 5 years by destabilizing tenants. And so if Rochester is awarded this grant, I know council will work with the NBD department to make sure that the program is structured in such a way as to promote housing stability and avoid tenant displacement and homelessness. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice President.
President Melendez, may I have a word for a moment?
Councilmember Gruber.
Thanks. I echo Vice President Lupien's remarks. I think there certainly always can be unintended consequences. I also think one of the reasons why I'm supporting is we all know the importance of this work and obviously making sure that we're being mindful about lot abatement. But most importantly for me on this introductory, I really appreciated the conversation we had at a committee meeting level around trying to get a little bit more into the details on grant applications. That was really refreshing. It's not something that we've had the opportunity to do in the last 4 years. I don't think committee meetings are the best place to do that because there's obviously a lot of work to do in a short period of time before a grant application. And I'm just hoping that we can work together as a council and administration to build out a process to be able to talk through grant applications better. These things are complicated and it requires a lot of conversation. And I think this was a great start. And I look forward to building out that process together.
Great, thank you. If there are no additional comments, I'd like to proceed with the vote on introductory number 7. All in favor, please say aye.
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 All opposed, say nay. The motion carries.
The clerk will enter the affirmative vote 9-0 into the record on introductory number 7.
Okay, Councilmember Chairperson Patterson, do you have a motion on introductory number 8?
Yes, hello. At this time, I'd like to offer a motion to discharge introductory number 8 from committee.
Is there a second?
A second.
Council President, I also have a comment on this one before we vote.
Me as well, Mr. President.
Before we vote on discharging it or before we vote on the actual?
Might as well go because I'm not going to vote to discharge it. So I'd like to have my comments here if that's okay.
All right, Vice President Lupien.
Thank
Floor is
you.
yours.
I've spoken with many of my colleagues about the need to really carefully consider council giving up its ability to approve pilot extensions. This approval process serves as a critical lever for council to ensure that buildings receiving tax breaks through the shelter rent pilot program are maintaining buildings in acceptable condition and providing quality, affordable housing. So I would like to discuss ways to fast track shelter rent pilot renewals in such a way that they would still come before council approval, which is why I'm going to vote to hold it in committee. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Smith?
Yes, I agree with Councilmember Lupien, and I would just add to that affordable housing, of course, is critical to our Rochester residents. However, so is safe and adequate housing. And when I received some of the responses to the questions that we had, there was some incongruence between the responses that we're giving to the city to report out and between the residents who are actually residing in a few of those dwellings. And what they reported just multiple units with one working elevator, mold, continuous complaints, and none of them have received follow-up on. And one of the properties still has code violations that I am not sure have been addressed. So it is for those reasons that I would like to hold it in committee.
Very well. So at this point, we will vote on discharging it from committee. So let's vote on discharging introductory number 8 from committee. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Hmm.
All opposed, say nay.
Nay.
Roll
Nay.
call vote, Mr. President.
Can we get a roll call, please?
Sure. Councilmember Gruber,
Clerk Washington, this is just for the NBD committee, which I'm not on.
No. This is everybody.
it's everybody.
To discharge it from committee?
Yes.
Okay, I vote yes to discharge it from committee, although I would question my understanding of that rule, but go ahead. So yes, we can
Okay.
discharge.
Councilmember Harris,
Yes.
Councilmember Lightfoot,
No.
Councilmember Martin,
No.
Councilmember Patterson,
Yes.
Councilmember Pio,
Yes.
Councilmember Smith,
No.
Vice President Lupian.
No.
President Melendez.
Yes.
So 5-4.
The motion carries.
The clerk will enter the affirmative vote to discharge introductory number 8 from committee. The vote is 5-4, and Councilmember Lightfoot, Martin, Smith, and Vice President Lupian voting no.
So I'd like to make a brief statement on this. I appreciate that this item was brought to council with a work session last month. And it's very clear that approving this item will help streamline the pilot process. With that being said, I think the issue that I have, along with several of the other colleagues that I've spoken to over the last couple days, is that city council would then lose potentially some oversight or awareness even of issues related to pilots in the community. And I think we can address that by having administration include council members as part of the pilot review community. And I'm wondering if we can get a reaction from the mayor in terms of the willingness to include council members in the new process, as opposed to, where we are right now.
Absolutely, and we will work to make sure that we include folks in the process, particularly individuals who want to participate in a way that is constructive. I think that it was one point that was made that I thought was very good, and that there was a session on this last year. In fact, when I was on council, and I believe it was open to everyone. But yes, Mr. President, we will work to make sure that we include folks in this process.
And Mayor Evans, I would hope that would include, consistent seats on, any pilot review committee that we form. I know that we will still see every pilot that comes as a new project before the council. So this is simply the pilots that we're looking to extend.
Absolutely. And when any pilots that we extend, and as a lot of people know, some people think that the work of council takes place at a committee meet. All of the work at council takes place at a committee meeting or a city council meeting. But as you know, there's a lot of work that goes on before these things happen. I always explain to the public, although most of the public don't watch these meetings, that a lot of this work goes on in between that time. So anyone that is committed to doing that work in between that time, more hands make light work. So I'm committed to any individual that wants to work constructively on this to be a part of that process. I see no problem with that. I just think that where things get confused is if we think we do all the work in an hour or 2-hour meeting. So if there are individuals that are interested and have an interest in pilot agreements, let's have at it. And we are more than willing to have them involved in this process.
Thank you. So now with that, let's vote on introductory number 8. All in favor, please say aye.
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 All opposed, say nay.
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 No.
Can we get a roll call vote?
We'll do a roll call vote.
Councilmember Gruber,
Yes.
Councilmember Harris,
Yes.
Councilmember Lightfoot,
No.
Councilmember Martin,
No.
Councilmember Patterson,
Yes.
Councilmember Pio,
Yes.
Councilmember Smith,
No.
Vice President Lupian,
No.
President Melendez.
Yes. The motion carries.
The clerk will enter the affirmative vote of 5-4 into the record on introductory number 8 with Councilmember Lightfoot, Martin, Smith, and Vice President Lupian voting no.
Councilmember Peel, the Parks and Public Works Committee report, please.
To the council, the Parks and Public Works Committee recommends for adoption the following entitled legislation. Introductory number 13, appropriating Federal Highway Administration, Martelli Aid, and American Rescue Plan Act funds and authorizing an agreement relating to the State Street Reconstruction Project. Introductory number 14, bond ordinance of the City of Rochester, New York, authorizing the issuance of $981,000 worth of bonds of said city to finance the costs of the State Street Reconstruction Project. Introductory number 15, bond ordinance of the City of Rochester, New York, authorizing the issuance of $3,812,000 worth bonds of said city to finance water service improvements associated with the State Street Improvement Project. Introductory number 16, resolution authorizing the implementation and funding in the first instance of 100% of the federal aid and state Martelli program aid eligible costs of a transportation federal aid project and appropriating funds therefore relating to the State Street Reconstruction Project. Introductory number 17, bond ordinance of the City of Rochester, New York, authorizing the issuance of $1,456,000 bonds of said city to finance the cost of the Orange Street and Saxton Street Rehabilitation Project. Introductory number 18, appropriating community development block grant funds and authorizing an agreement relating to the Orange Street and Saxton Street Rehabilitation Project. On introductory number 19, authorizing a professional services agreement for the Brewery Line Trail Project. Introductory number 20, appropriating funds for the Rochester Fire Department Firehouse Needs Assessment Program. Introductory number 21, amending ordinance number 2021-364 in relation to the 2021 Preventive Maintenance Northwest Group 12 project. Introductory number 22, appropriating funds from the Rochester Pure Waters District for sewer improvements associated with street improvement projects. Introductory number 23, authorizing an agreement for hydraulic model simulation support services. Introductory number 24, authorizing an amendatory license agreement for water quality monitoring equipment located at a Livingston County Water and Sewer Authority facility. Introductory number 25, bond ordinance of the City of Rochester, New York, authorizing the issuance of $2,300,000 bonds of said city to finance the cost of 2022 water main lining and lead service replacement project. Introductory number 26, authorizing an amendatory agreement with the New York State Department of Transportation to provide snow and ice control. These legislation are respectively submitted by Councilmember Mitch Gruber, Councilmember Willie Lightfoot, Vice President Mary Lupian, President Miguel Melendez, and myself, Jose Pio.
Thank you, member. Thank you, Councilmember Peel. That report will be received, filed, and published, and will proceed with the vote. Introductory number 13, legislation appropriating funds and authorizing an agreement related to the State Street Reconstruction Project. All in favor, please say aye.
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 All opposed, say nay. Motion carries.
The clerk will enter the affirmative vote of 9-0 into the record.
Introductory number 14 is a bond ordinance authorizing $981,000 bonds to finance the cost of the State Street Reconstruction Project. This requires a roll call.
Councilmember Gruber,
Absolutely.
Councilmember Harris,
Yes.
Councilmember Lightfoot,
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember Martin,
Yes.
Councilmember Patterson,
Yes.
Councilmember Pio,
Yes.
Councilmember Smith,
Yes.
Vice President Lupian,
Yes.
President Melendez.
Yes, the motion carries.
The clerk will enter the affirmative vote of 9-0 into the record.
Introductory number 15 is a bond ordinance authorizing $3,812,000 bonds to finance water service improvements associated with the State Street Improvement Project. This requires a roll call.
Councilmember Gruber,
Yes.
Councilmember Harris,
yes,
Councilmember Lightfoot,
Yes.
Councilmember Martin,
Yes.
Councilmember Patterson,
yes,
Councilmember Pio,
yes,
Councilmember Smith,
yes,
Vice President Lupian,
Yes.
President Melendez.
Yes,
Thank you.
the motion carries.
Clerk will enter the affirmative vote of 9-0 into the record.
Introductory number 16 is a resolution authorizing the implementation and funding of transportation federal aid project and appropriating funds therefore relating to the State Street Reconstruction Project. All in favor, please say aye.
aye,
Aye.
aye,
All opposed, say nay. The motion carries.
Clerk will enter the affirmative vote of 9-0 into the record.
Introductory number 17 is a bond ordinance authorizing $1,456,000 bonds to finance the cost of the Orange Street and Saxon Street Rehabilitation Project. This requires a roll call.
Councilmember Gruber,
Yes.
Councilmember Harris,
yes,
Councilmember Lightfoot,
Yes.
Councilmember Martin,
Yes.
Councilmember Patterson,
yes,
Councilmember Pio,
yes,
Councilmember Smith,
yes,
Vice President Lupian,
Yes.
President Melendez.
Yes, the motion carries.
The clerk will enter the affirmative vote of 9-0 into the record.
Introductory number 18, legislation appropriating community development block grant funds and authorizing an agreement relating to the Orange Street and Saxon Street Rehabilitation Project. All in favor, please say aye.
aye,
aye,
All opposed, say nay. The motion carries.
The clerk will enter the affirmative vote of 9-0 into the record.
Introductory number 19, legislation authorizing a professional services agreement for the Brewery Line Trail project. All in favor, please say aye.
aye,
aye,
All opposed, say nay. The motion carries.
The clerk will enter the affirmative vote of 9-0 into the record.
Introductory number 20, legislation appropriating funds for the Rochester Fire Department Firehouse Needs Assessment Program. All in favor, please say aye.
aye,
aye,
All opposed, say nay. The motion carries.
The clerk will enter the affirmative vote of 9-0 into the record.
Introductory number 21, legislation amending ordinance number 2021-364 in relation to the 2021 Preventative Maintenance Northwest Group 12. All in favor, please say aye.
aye,
aye,
All opposed, say nay. The motion carries.
The clerk will enter the affirmative vote of 9-0 into the record.
Introductory number 22, legislation appropriating funds from the Rochester Pure Waters District for sewer improvements associated with street improvement projects. All in favor, please say aye.
aye,
All opposed, say nay. The motion carries.
Clerk will enter the affirmative vote of 9-0 into the record.
Introductory number 23, legislation authorizing an agreement for hydraulic model simulation support services. All in favor, please say aye.
aye,
aye,
All opposed, say nay. The motion carries.
The clerk will enter the affirmative vote of 9-0 into the record.
Introductory number 24, legislation authorizing the mandatory license agreement for water quality monitoring equipment located at the Livingston County Water and Sewer Facility. All in favor, please say aye.
aye,
aye,
All opposed, say nay. The motion carries.
The clerk will enter the affirmative vote of 9-0 into the record.
Introductory number 25 is a bond ordinance authorizing $2,300,000 bond to finance the cost of the 2022 water main line and lead service replacement project. This requires a roll call.
Councilmember Gruber,
Yes.
Councilmember Harris,
yes,
Councilmember Lightfoot,
Yes.
Councilmember Martin,
Yes.
Councilmember Patterson,
yes,
Councilmember Pio,
yes,
Councilmember Smith,
yes,
Vice President Lupian,
Yes.
President Melendez.
Yes, the motion carries.
The clerk will enter the affirmative vote of 9-0 into the record.
Introductory number 26, legislation authorizing an amendatory agreement with the New York State Department of Transportation to support snow and ice control. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. The motion carries.
The clerk will enter the affirmative vote of 9-0 into the record.
I will now read the Public Safety, Recreation, and Human Services Committee report. To the council, the Public Safety, Recreation, and Human Services Committee recommends for adoption the following entitled legislation. Introductory number 29, appropriating American Rescue Plan Act funds, amending the 2021-22 budget and authorizing an agreement relating to the International Plaza improvements. Introductory number 30, authorizing a professional services agreement for the youth basketball training program. Introductory 31, authorizing an agreement with the Monroe County or the County of Monroe for the United States Justice Department grant for improving the criminal justice response to sexual assault, domestic violence, dating violence, and stalking. Introductory number 32, authorizing an agreement for the Stop Violence Against Women grant program. Introductory number 33, appropriating ARPA funds, amending the 2021-22 budget and authorizing an agreement for COVID response and vaccination incentives. Introductory number 34, appropriating American Rescue Plan Act funds, amending the 2021-22 budget and authorizing an agreement relating to the Healthcare Workforce Resiliency Program. Introductory number 35, amending ordinance number 2021-368 in relation to Society for the Protection and Care of Children Services and for the Comprehensive Adolescent Pregnancy Prevention Program. The Public Safety, Recreation, and Human Services Committee recommends the following entitled legislation to be held in committee. Introductory number 27, appropriating federal forfeiture funds and amending the 2021-22 budget to purchase equipment. Introductory number 28, amending the 2021-22 budget and authorizing agreements related to the Trauma Training and Officer Wellness Program. And introductory number 47, authorizing an agreement for investigations case management software. This report was respectfully submitted by Councilmember Stanley Martin, Councilmember Jose Pio, Vice President Mary Lupien, and myself, President Miguel A. Melendez Jr. That report will be received, filed, and published, and we'll proceed with the vote. Introductory number 29, legislation appropriating ARPA funds, amending the 2021-22 budget, and authorizing an agreement related to the International Plaza improvements. All in favor, please say aye.
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 All opposed, say nay. I will abstain. The motion carries.
The clerk will enter the affirmative vote of 8-1 into the record with President Melendez abstaining.
Introductory number 30, legislation authorizing a professional services agreement for the youth basketball training program. All in favor, please say aye.
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 All opposed, say nay. The motion carries.
Clerk will enter the affirmative vote of 9-0 into the record.
Introductory number 31, legislation authorizing a grant agreement related to the criminal justice response to sexual assault, domestic violence, dating violence, and stalking. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, say nay. The motion carries.
The clerk will enter the affirmative vote of 9-0 into the record.
Introductory number 32, legislation authorizing an agreement for the Stop Violence Against Women grant program. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. The motion carries.
Clerk will enter the affirmative vote of 9-0 into the record.
Introductory number 33, legislation appropriating ARPA funds, amending the 2021-22 budget, and authorizing an agreement for COVID response and vaccination incentives. All in favor, please say aye.
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 All opposed say nay.
Nay.
The motion carries.
The clerk will enter the affirmative vote of 8-1 into the record with Councilmember Peel voting no.
Introductory number 34, legislation appropriating ARPA funds, amending the 2021-22 budget and authorizing an agreement relating to the healthcare workforce resiliency program. All in favor, please say aye.
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 All opposed say nay. The motion carries.
The clerk will enter the affirmative vote of 9-0 into the record.
Introductory number 34, legislation amending ordinance number 2021-368 relating to the comprehensive adolescent pregnancy prevention program. All in favor, please say aye.
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 All opposed say nay. The motion carries.
And that was introductory number 35, right?
34. Oh, sorry, my script says 34, but 35, yes.
Okay. The clerk will enter the affirmative vote of 9-0 into the record.
I would like to make a motion to discharge introductory number 27 from committee, legislation appropriating federal forfeiture funds and amending the 2021-22 budget to purchase equipment. Do I have a second?
Second.
President Melendez?
Councilmember Lupien, or Vice President Lupien, sorry.
Sure, I'd like to make a comment about my vote on this. I'm going to be voting no to discharge this item from committee. This item seeks to amend the RPD budget to reflect $12,200 of revenue generated by RPD seizure of property through the federal forfeiture program. And though this amount of money is relatively small and the funds will be used in part to purchase items that will ultimately save the department money, I must take a stand against the practice of civil forfeiture. For those who don't know, there are two types of asset forfeiture, criminal and civil. And in criminal forfeiture, someone must be charged with a crime for their assets to be seized. And if the person is found not guilty, the seized property must be returned. However, in civil forfeiture, assets are seized by the police based on a suspicion of wrongdoing and without having to charge a person with said wrongdoing. The Supreme Court Justice Thomas wrote an opinion stating that civil forfeiture proceedings often enable government to seize the property without any pre-deprivation judicial process and to obtain forfeiture of the property even when the owner is personally innocent. Civil proceedings often lack certain procedural protections that accompany criminal proceedings, such as the right to a jury trial and a heightened standard of proof. 11 states require a criminal conviction to engage in some or all of the forfeiture proceedings. 3 states exclude property valued under a certain amount from criminal conviction requirement, and 4 states, North Carolina, New Mexico, Nebraska, and most recently Maine in 2021 have abolished civil forfeiture entirely. It was originally presented as a way to cripple large-scale criminal enterprises by diverting their resources, but today, aided by deeply flawed federal and state laws, many departments can use forfeiture to benefit their bottom lines, making seizures motivated by profit rather than crime fighting. And I recognize that RPD is constrained by these federal and state laws, but this is a matter of principle for me, and I will work with my colleagues on council to advocate for change to these laws. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice President Lupien. Now let's vote on discharging introductory number 27 from committee. All in favor?
Actually, question real quick before we vote on the discharge. Can we have Corporation Counsel or RPD speak to the item and to the points that Councilmember Lupien made?
Yes.
I would like to see RPD address the issue of whether this was taken via civil or criminal forfeiture. That would be their area of expertise.
So we receive funds both from criminal and civil forfeiture. As far as specifically what these particular funds were asking to be released, how we acquired those, I would have to have time to research that. I don't know if we keep 2 individual pots or if once we have the funds, we just put them in one pot together.
But it should be noted there is due process associated with both types of forfeiture.
Could you address that in a little bit more detail? The council members seem to be pretty clear in her description.
Yes, honestly, as far as the details of the process, I can certainly prepare some written information for council. I do not have it here. The question wasn't posed before tonight, so I did not delve into that. But I am aware from my years of dealing with various forfeiture situations that there is due process and there are remedies available. But as to the distinct remedies, I would have to do a little bit of research on that and get back to council.
From what I
Is-
researched, I can speak to that.
Well-
The criminal requires,
What- excuse me,
Whoever-
can I-
I just want to
Got-
finish my sentence, that
Well,
criminal
but
forfeiture
I-
requires a certain burden of
Vice
proof.
President, Vice President
Can I-
Lupien, if Councilmember Patterson can finish, then we can circle back.
So to Corporation Council or RPD, is this a time sensitive item? Is this a matter of something that if you don't get this approval tonight, there's vehicles you won't be able to purchase?
That's correct.
Any
So
additional questions?
I'd like to
Madam
answer
Councilmember?
Councilmember Patterson's question.
And Vice President Lupien?
In terms of the due process, the criminal trial is, there's certain legal barriers of proof, and the criminal trial is without a shadow of a doubt or similar
Beyond a
wording.
reasonable doubt.
Thank you. And the civil is a preponderance of evidence, which is a lower
Correct.
standard. So it's harder, and it falls on the person who owns the property to prove that it wasn't used in a crime. And it's often hard for a person to do that, and it's onerous and time consuming and can be costly. So from what my research, the cost to get it back can often be greater than the value of the item itself.
Mr. President, if I can just say, I'd be happy to host a session, either a work session or whatever on this forfeiture stuff. I mean, this is something that comes up all the time in council. There's always questions about it. I'd be happy to host a session on this. I know it's a complicated topic, but be happy to host a session. You know, often we have people say, why can't you use the money for other things? But there are very strict rules that face the forfeiture. So we'd be happy to host a session, because this is not going to be the last time that this will come up. And a lot of this is governed by federal law. It has nothing to do with us locally as a municipality. But I think we would be more than willing to host a session on this, because this is something that we may see in larger numbers going forward.
Thank you for that, Mayor Evans. I think that there's also a larger conversation from what I'm hearing around understanding the practice of how things are seized in the forfeiture process. And I would welcome also having those conversations, even though they're at state or federal level, to really explore what's going on in that process. So I just want to honor that part of the request as well. With that, I'd like to vote to discharge introductory number 27 from committee. All in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed, say nay.
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 Get a roll call vote.
Councilmember Gruber,
Yes.
Councilmember Harris,
Yes.
Councilmember Lightfoot,
Yes.
Councilmember Martin,
No.
Councilmember Patterson,
No.
Councilmember Pio,
Yes.
Councilmember Smith,
No.
Vice President Lupien,
No.
President Melendez.
Yes.
Motion carries 5-4 to discharge introductory number 27. I will enter that into the record.
Now let's vote on introductory number 27. All in favor, please say aye.
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 All opposed, say nay.
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 Can we get a roll call?
Roll call.
Councilmember Gruber,
Yes.
Councilmember Harris,
Yes.
Councilmember Lightfoot,
Yes.
Councilmember Martin,
No.
Councilmember Patterson,
Yes.
Councilmember Pio,
Yes.
Councilmember Smith,
No.
Vice President Lupian,
No.
President Melendez.
Yes.
Motion carries 6-3 with Council Members Martin, Smith, and Vice President Lupian voting no. I will enter that in the record.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Secondly, I'd like to make a motion to discharge introductory number 28 from committee, legislation amending the 2021-22 budget and authorizing agreements relating to trauma, training, and officer wellness program. Do I have a second?
Move it.
I would like to make some comments before it's discharged.
Councilmember Martin.
So the Race Commission was formed after the murder of George Floyd to address police violence and racial and structural inequities in our city. The decision to allocate $250,000 to the RPD budget from a pot of money meant to address the issue of racial and structural equity is frankly hurtful, especially following the largest uprising in the history of Rochester, demanding systemic changes. As Black and Brown people in our community and low-income people in our community suffer today from the trauma of police brutality and systemically underfunded social programming and lack of violence prevention resources, this body choosing to give money to the police in addition to their $95 million budget is wholly inappropriate. Furthermore, I asked many questions regarding the company that would be providing the Wellness app resources. Lexapol has a history of obstructing changes to police departments that have to do with use of force standards. And there has not been a plan of clear implementation when it comes to providing wellness resources. We're just being given this budget of $240,000 out of $1 million, which is roughly a quarter of it to the police departments. I'm asking for this to be held. I feel like we're in a space where we know better and we have the choice to do better. And I'm asking that you join me in doing better and voting no on Introductory 28.
Any additional comments?
President Melendez?
Councilmember Gruber?
Thank you. I would just like to add to Councilmember Martin's comments to say that the $1 million that was appropriated for the Race Commission was a fairly arbitrary dollar amount. It has yet to be matched in any way by the county, even though this was a joint city-county effort. Or if it has been matched by the county, we haven't been told about it. And I think most importantly, the previous administration allocated the money without providing any pathway for public input. As a former member of the Race Commission, I can speak alongside Councilmember Lightfoot, unless he had a different experience. We have not been engaged once. We're not engaged once by the previous administration about how these dollars ought to be spent. And I think that goes for the rest of the Race Commission. Recently spoke to Bill Johnson, who chaired it, also was not really engaged by the previous administration. So I understand Councilmember Martin's concerns on this. I'm just taking a little bit of a different approach. I would ask this administration, the Evans administration, to consider allocating significantly more dollars to race implementation and to actually creating a body with the county that is charged for working on the implementation in a public and transparent way so we can actually get some things done.
President Melendez, I have comments.
Vice President Lupian?
Thank you. I, back in May of 2020, I watched body-worn camera footage of 10-year-old Naila and her sister being handcuffed by police after a traffic stop. And in that video, it was clear that the officers did not recognize the trauma response in the girls, nor did they recognize it in themselves. The whole incident could have been avoided if RPD had been trained in how to spot and respond to trauma when it shows up in our community. Councilmember Gruber and I wrote a memo, an interdepartmental memo to the RPD urging trauma-informed training and suggested resources for implementation. I believe this type of training is necessary, and when done well, can improve the outcomes of interactions between the police and the community. However, I agree with Councilmember Martin that this money coming from the 1 million set aside for raise recommendations is painful. The genesis of raise had been initially a council allocation of $750,000 during the 2020 budget to study how we can right-size the department, shift responsibilities to other professionals, and reallocate funding to the community for mental health supports and other resources in the community that would lead to a reduction in crime through prevention. And while the training is incredibly important, spending a quarter of the 1 million set aside for raise to give to RPD for their training program goes against the initial promise from council to the community to explore reallocation. I believe this training is important, but it should be funded through the RPD budget. Additionally, the charter states that the PAB shall evaluate training, and that shall is a powerful and forceful word. The RPD is mandated to give the PAB access to needed to properly evaluate the training and its outcomes. And though the language in the charter does not specify PAB's involvement in the selection process for new training, it would make sense to clarify that language and create a process for initial screening and recommendations by the PAB before investment is made in new trainings, and to provide these recommendations to RPD and council to aid them in their decision-making process. And so for me, this is a tough vote because I think the training is necessary, but I disagree with where the funding is coming from. And for that reason, I'll be abstaining.
Very well. I just like to address a couple things, and I appreciate where everyone is and where they're coming from on this. So before we vote on the discharging, I just want to say that, the $1 million that we've allocated for the Race Commission recommendations, they are insufficient. I think we all agree that we need to invest much more than just the $1 million towards this effort. And when we received the presentation on the allocation from the previous administration, the intent was never to have that be the ceiling. I think the intent was to have that be the floor. And I just want to be clear that, while we have this 1 million allocation, there's been several other projects that align with the Race Commission report, such as, the Universal Basic Income pilot that we just approved through Ruby, as well as the $13 million through the By the Block program. We've pushed forward the last year on mental health response. And I know that it's not enough and there's a lot more that we have to do, but the PIC team is a good start. And I also want to acknowledge that there's violence prevention efforts that we are establishing through the Office of Neighborhood Safety, which I think we'll hear more about in the first couple months of the new administration as well. So to the public, I just want to state that, it's not true that, $1 million is all we have. We've been steadily over time increasing the amount of investments we're making in some of these spaces. But I'm also going to ask that the Finance Committee chair works diligently with the administration to expand our race allocation. I think we have to find a way to increase the dollars that we're supporting here. I think we can continue to increase our support towards systemic change, but it does require investment. And I think expanding these resources at this time, I understand the feelings around this and the pain that we've all gone through in the last year and a half. But I do think that, all of this stuff comes from the operating budget, any way you slice it. And this is an opportunity for us to invest in wellness. We just had a 3-year-old shot last week. And I have a 3-year-old son. And I couldn't imagine what officers experience responding to that call. So I hear you, I honor you. I think that we have a lot of work to do in this space. But before we went to a vote, I wanted to make sure I just stated that there'll be plenty of opportunity for us to expand and increase and invest in the changes that we want to see here. So with that, if there's no further comment,
I would also like to comment one more time.
Okay, Councilmember Pio, followed by Councilmember Martin.
Appreciate it. Sorry, I didn't mean to jump in there last minute, but I do believe as leaders in a city that's ever growing and ever changing, we come to a point where we overanalyze a lot of things, and we get to the point where we're analyzing to the point where we have paralysis. We got that analysis paralysis part. And, as Winston Churchill said, perfection is the enemy of progress. We need to progress forward. We need to make decisions as leaders that maybe not everybody's going to agree with now, but we're allowed to make errors. We're allowed to progress forward so that we learn from it, so we can go back and go through and make sure that we are consistently growing as a city. So that's why I'm going to vote yes on this. While it may not be perfect, it is certainly something that our police officers need. Not just the shooting of that 3-year-old, but also the person that crashed into that other vehicle. I mean, pulling body parts out of vehicles on a daily basis, pulling children out of gunshot wounds, it's crazy right now. So anything to help our police right now, it may not be perfect, but it's progress.
Councilmember Martin.
Yeah, just a quick response. When we talk about what the police officers see, I acknowledge that being in these kinds of situations would traumatize any human being. So I would also want to add, how about the family of Danielle Prude? How about the family of Simran Gordon? How about the family of Sylvan Simmons? Our community members are also very traumatized by instances, including RPD. So to only focus on their wellness, when in fact they do have a significant opportunity to get wellness resources through the employee assisted program, where they can access therapy, access all kinds of resources for their wellness. So I really do want to challenge the narrative that this is the only opportunity that RPD has to access wellness, when in fact they are given very significant benefits to be able to access wellness. So I still stand by saying that the community should be put first. The community needs housing. The community needs violence prevention services. The community has needs that have not been met. And I am deeply concerned that this administration is also continuing to uphold the systems of white supremacy that do not put the city of Rochester first. So with that, I will turn it over to you.
Thank you, Councilmember Martin. I think there's space for
President?
all of us. Yes, Mayor Evans.
Yeah, I'll just be brief. So this is a recommendation that was made from the Race Commission. And Mr. President, I would just echo your comments. This was a recommendation that was made from the Race Commission that we are honoring. And the second thing I'll say is that there will be, at least in my administration, we are going to work to exceed the $1 million that was allocated in raise. All these funds come out of the general fund, and we will make sure that we spend more than the $1 million. And you mentioned some of the other items, buy a block, the universal basic income, and other things that we will make investments in that will go above the $1 million. And Jesus, I think Minister Lawrence Evans Sr. would be turning in his grave if his son wanted to uphold white supremacy. That's just unbelievable to even hear. We're talking about one program that came as a recommendation from Raise, which 2 of my former colleagues sat on. And we have on City Council currently 2 veterans and 2 individuals who were first responders. I'm not looking to uphold anything, but I do want to honor a recommendation that came from the Race Commission. And we're not doing this at the expense of other things. If I felt as though that this was taking away from a youth to work program that I wanted to roll out, or a violence prevention program that I wanted to roll out, I wouldn't advance this. This was a recommendation that came from the Race Commission. And we're putting it forth for that reason and for that instance. But in no way is this going to stop me or stop us from spending money on all of the other programs that are there. I just think we have to be careful when we have disagreements to then go from, in my household, there were 6 of us, to go from 0 to 100, to equate this with white supremacy. Come on, let's try to work collaboratively. I think we can have these conversations going forward, but to equate a recommendation that came from the Race Commission with white supremacy is I think just a bridge too far. We can work together, but if we're going to work together, I think we have to watch our words. Because when I disagree with folks, and in council, I will tell you this to all of my council members, please know that I won't prescribe using words that you can't take back. And that's, and we don't have to do that. We don't have to do that. I mean, is that really who we are as a community?
So I want to be extremely clear and make sure that.
Councilmember Martin, if
Council
Mayor
member.
may finish.
I know you're new, council member, but you can't interrupt. I didn't interrupt you. I didn't
So,
interrupt you. So
I thought you were done speaking because you paused. So you can finish.
I know I can. Thank you, because I have the floor. I have the floor, please. So I just hope that we can work collaboratively. Councilmember Martin, I look forward to working with you, but just know that I would never subscribe anytime I disagree with you with that broad brush. I think that we can work together in a way that is constructive, and I really want to start that way off with 18 days in office. But I am fulfilling a charge that came from the Race Commission. But please know, ladies and gentlemen, that this is not going to be done at the expense of any other dollars. So thank you, Mr. President.
Okay, I'd like to give Councilmember Martin a chance to respond, but first I'd like to give the floor to Councilmember Lightfoot, who's been waiting patiently.
Thank you. Good evening, colleagues, and I'll be brief. 3 points I'd like to offer for consideration as it relates to this particular introductory. First and foremost, I sat on the Race Commission with my colleague, Dr. Gruber. I also concur with his statements as it relates to the county. I think there's an advocacy piece that I hope comes out of this as well. Oftentimes we don't seem to get our fair share. We all pay county taxes. We all contribute to that as well. And I don't see a parallel when it comes to, as it relates to the being intentional about the Race Commission and its work as it relates to the county. So I hope there's an advocacy conversation that happens going forward that we can have at some point in time and hold our other partners accountable, because that word seems to get thrown around a lot, accountability. And I hope that we could use that because it really needs to be some accountability, because this was a joint effort. So let's just put a pin there. Then I would talk about, basically there was talk about, I spent 22 years in Rochester Fire Department. So I understand some of the resources that are available to city employees. I've talked about health and wellness as it relates to public safety for years, since I was in the county legislature, when I was chair of public safety here on the city council. And I've always questioned and or asked for reports as it relates to how many people, employees, use COPE, use EAP. And I can tell you, just from my experience on the fire department, very few people take advantage of EAP. And I'm not saying why. I would just say that I would tell you, especially as it relates to public safety, that you have to have, as we do in the world, in the space of working in our criminal environment, whether it's Pathways of Peace, whether it's PIC, we're sending out credible messengers into these communities, right? And that's how we're making a difference in those spaces, because they're credible messengers. We can't, and so in this space of wellness, you have to have credible messengers or credible people that are going to be able to get the attention of these individuals, or else, unfortunately, the culture of it, which I don't necessarily say I agree with, but the fact of the matter is they're not going to access some of those services because they may be antiquated and or they just don't address the actual individuals in these spaces because they can't relate. And so I think that that's important, and why I vote yes, because I believe that this could get us to a point that the Race Commission, which had extensive community engagement, and this was one of the things that came out of that. And I would say, as far as speaking to Councilman Appeal's point of moving progress, the fact of the matter is we've all been traumatized. We want to kind of put it on this person or that person, that all of us have been traumatized, and sick people can't help nobody, right? Because hurt people. And so we all could benefit from wellness. Council members could benefit from wellness. Okay. And so the fact of the matter is, if we're going to ask individuals to go out with less support under the types of pressure and conditions that we all are under and not have an outlet for them to be able, but we want to build police and community relations, realizing that we have to reimagine this. We have to invest and be intentional in everyone. It's not a this or that, it's all of it. We need all of the above. We need all of it. We need help for the people that are impacted, because we're all impacted. City council need to go through health and wellness. Every last one of us should go through a health and wellness class, and we probably would find out some things about ourselves. Okay, so I support this because I believe we have to be intentional about building police and community relations, because what's happened in the past clearly is not working. EAP been there for 30 years. It ain't working. It don't work, because if it worked, we wouldn't need this. So we have to take a step forward to do something different. If we keep doing the same thing, we're gonna get the same results. Now, if we want to argue over what pot of money it came from, I'm gonna have that conversation a little bit later, and I hope that we see the same conversation we're getting ready to have in a little while. I hope we have the same concept in a little while, because the same thing applies. You know what I'm saying? As far as where the money coming from. And so I would say that to say that I support this. Our officers, our first responders are under tremendous pressure, as well as our citizens. And we're doing both. We have our PIC team. We're providing services that we never provided to them before, spending money in those areas that we never provided them before. So it's not or this or that. It's both, all of the above, and we have to be intentional, which I believe this is doing a part of building the police and community relations, and that becomes with dealing with wellness. And I think that could benefit our community overall. And because of that, I support this particular introduction. Thank you, Mr. President, for your time. And thank you, council members, for listening.
Thank you, Councilmember Lightfoot. In the interest of time, I'm going to ask that Councilmember Martin, you can respond briefly or set up a time to connect with Mayor directly, if that's okay, on some additional conversations that I think the two of you would benefit from having at this point.
Yes, I would just be very brief. Mayor Evans, you made a comment about, my tone and we don't speak this way. I was very intentional with my words, and I would like to work collaboratively with you. And I think that includes not policing my tone and allowing me to speak freely about the things that matter to me and my constituents. So I do still stand by my no votes because an 8-hour training is not going to lead to long-term wellness for police officers, and we should be thinking about the whole community. So I do agree with Councilmember Lightfoot when it comes to that. We should be thinking about teachers who are traumatized, all the first responders, including firefighters, and what long-term systems we can create to address the needs of our entire community. Thank you.
Thank you. So this was properly motioned and seconded. Let's vote on discharging introductory number 28 from committee. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, say nay.
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 Abstain.
Council President Melendez, we mentioned this at prior meetings. A member cannot abstain unless there is an ethical or legal conflict. Otherwise, the member has to vote either A or nay.
Thank you, Linda, for that. So, Council Vice
Can we
President.
get a roll call?
Yes, we'll get a roll call.
Councilmember Gruber,
Yes.
Councilmember Harris,
Yes.
Councilmember Lightfoot,
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember Martin,
No.
Councilmember Patterson,
Yes.
Councilmember Pio,
Yes.
Councilmember Smith,
No.
Vice President Lupian,
I am going to abstain. Council Kingsley, I hear what you're saying. It's not something that I've heard before in my 2 years on council, and I'd like to explore the legal justification for your opinion. Thanks.
President Melendez.
Yes.
Is Councilmember Kingsley, are you speaking? If you are, you're on mute.
You're on mute, yeah.
If you, everything you just said, we did not.
I
hear.
apologize. I said, I put my legal advice on record. Roberts is clear that, and case law is clear that abstention for a legislative body member is supposed to only be exercised in the case of a legal or an ethical conflict, and that they have council members, legislative bodies have an obligation to their constituents to otherwise vote. I'll leave it at that.
President Melendez,
Councilmember Gruber.
I don't believe we should set precedent where individual council members get a chance to pick and choose what to listen to from Corporation Council.
Noted. Council Vice President Lupien, we do need to have an affirmative or down vote on this piece.
Well, I will state for the record that Corporation Council is providing advice on Robert's rules, and we are the legislators at the end of the day. I really don't feel comfortable saying yes or no to this legislation.
So,
If I am forced,
yes,
I will vote yes. But for the record, I would rather abstain.
thank you for that.
The motion carries 7-2 with Councilmember Martin and Councilmember Smith voting no. And I will enter that into the record on the discharge of introductory number 28.
Now let's vote on introductory number 28. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay.
No.
And
Can we get a roll call?
Roll call vote.
Councilmember Gruber,
Yes.
Councilmember Harris,
Yes.
Councilmember Lightfoot,
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember Martin,
Nope.
Councilmember Patterson,
Yes.
Councilmember Pio,
Oh, yes.
Councilmember Smith,
no.
Vice President Lupien,
Yes, but again, I will note because the president of this body has asked me to say yes or no, I would rather abstain if I had that option.
President Melendez.
Yes.
Motion carries 7-2.
Lastly, I would like to make a motion to discharge introductory number 47 from committee. Legislation.
President Melendez, I'll enter that vote into the record with Council Members Martin and Smith voting no.
Sorry about that.
Thank you.
I did it myself. Thank you. So lastly, I'd like to make a motion to discharge introductory number 47 from committee. Legislation authorizing an agreement for investigations, case management software. Can I get a second?
Second.
So let's vote on discharging introductory.
Before you vote, Mr. President, can I just address, can I
Yes,
explain my
Councilmember
vote
Lightfoot.
as been done in the past tonight? Thank you, Mr. President. To the council, I just rise to explain my no vote to discharge. And it's very similar to just what we just got done talking about. We just gave $5 million to Police Accountability Board. And I believe we shouldn't be giving really another dime to Police Accountability Board without accountability of what happened with the $5 million, reports to this community, cases haven't been seen, all of these type of things, that questions that are unanswered. And I'm an advocate. I was an advocate for the $5 million. I helped draft the legislation of Police Accountability Board. I'm an advocate of Police Accountability Board, but quite frankly, I'm disappointed in their results or lack thereof. And so I feel like if they needed another X amount of dollars, we gave them $5 million that could come from there. So I'm reluctant to give any additional dollars without a lot of the questions that I have, and I think the community deserve, as far as, how many cases have already been seen or not seen. And then we're getting correspondence of people reaching out and are not getting the services that they thought that they were going to get. So I just wanted to go on record for putting that out there and letting, and my displeasure with the Police Accountability Board. Because we want to talk about accountability, then, that's my issue. And so I will be voting no. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Councilmember Lightfoot. And I just want to note that this is not increasing the budget for PAB, that this is actually part of the $5 million allocation this year, just to put that on record. Any other comments before we vote? Okay, so
Yes,
let's vote on
I do have a comment.
Vice President Lupien.
I'd also just like to state, I was not involved in any of the discussions around the Police Accountability Board with the previous council leadership. I had learned things, barriers that were put in the way of the Police Accountability Board from hearing cases. Most recently, they spent months working on finding a space to have that space, to have that process elongated. So I share your concern, Councilmember Lightfoot, that I think the entire community wants the police accountability to start hearing cases, but I'd just like to submit that I think some of the delay has not been of their doing.
With that, we'll move on to voting. So let's vote on discharging introductory number 47 from committee. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay.
Nay.
Motion carries.
Clerk will enter the affirmative vote of 7-1 into the record with Councilmember Lightfoot voting no on discharge and introductory number 47.
Is it 8-1 or 7-1?
I'm sorry, 8-1. 8-1.
Thank you. So now let's vote on introductory number 47. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay.
Nay.
Motion carries.
The clerk will enter the affirmative vote of 8-1 into the record with Councilmember Lightfoot voting no on introductory number 47.
Thank you. Now I would like to call the Committee of the Whole to order. Oh, excuse me. I should read the Committee of the Whole report. So to the Council, the Committee of the Whole recommends for the following entitled legislation to be held in committee. Introductory number 41, resolution confirming the appointment of the Commissioner of Recreation and Human Services. Introductory number 42, resolution confirming the appointment of the Commissioner of Environmental Services. Introductory number 43, resolution confirming the appointment of the Corporation Council. I would first like to make a motion to discharge introductory number 41 from committee, which is a resolution confirming the appointment of the Commissioner of Recreation and Human Services. Can I have a second?
Second.
Let's vote on discharging introductory number 41 from committee. All in favor, please say aye.
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 All opposed, say nay.
Nay.
Motion-
I'd just like to explain. I expressed this at the confirmation hearing that the process of confirming department heads has been rushed. I take this responsibility seriously as council members confirming department heads. I know that this has in the past been something that we've just kind of done as a courtesy to the mayor's administration. However, I feel like I would like to have more time to be able to evaluate commissioners, to really be able to give my 100% approval for the confirmation vote. So that is why I voted no.
So the motion does carry on that since we voted.
President Melendez?
Councilmember Gruber, yes.
Thank you. I'd just like to say that under no circumstances am I voting yes as a courtesy to the administration. I'm voting yes on all three of these appointees because they are very excellent, distinguished selections by the mayor. And I think it's a best practice to ensure that we can get the business of City Hall to work, and we need leadership to do so. So I just wanted to take exception to the idea that this is being done out of courtesy.
And I would like to second that. I mean, I feel like I've done a lot of due diligence on the last couple days on the candidates, and I'll second that. But I do see that Councilmember Martin would also like to make a comment.
Yes, I will also be voting no on this. I agree with Councilmember Lupien. I do feel that the process was simply done as a rubber stamp. We don't have enough information and enough time to ask the questions we need and to thoroughly evaluate the candidates who are being appointed. So I hope in the future this process changes and actually allows us to thoroughly evaluate the people we're putting in these very senior positions.
I'd just like a minute to respond to Councilmember Gruber.
Council Vice President.
I did not mean to imply in any way that anyone who votes yes is doing so out of courtesy. I just meant to say that, you know, as a practice, even if people had concerns in the past, that they would vote yes as a courtesy to give the new administration the benefit of the doubt. Not saying that anyone is doing that. It's just the message that I received. And I think that, you know, there's no change in the commissioner's ability to do their job. You know, if they're not confirmed, they just stay on. We did that with the commissioner of IT. I think maybe we didn't get his resume, but he was unconfirmed for months. So I'm not in any way, you know, trying to put a wrench into the work that needs to be done. This is just my personal decision. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so now let's vote on introductory number 41. Clerk Washington, please call the roll.
Councilmember Gruber,
Yes.
Councilmember Harris,
Yes.
Councilmember Lightfoot,
Yes.
Councilmember Martin,
Yes.
Councilmember Patterson,
Yes.
Councilmember Pio,
Yes.
Councilmember Smith,
Yes.
Vice President Lupien,
Yes.
President Melendez.
Yes, motion carries.
The clerk will enter the affirmative vote of 9-0 into the record on introductory number 41.
I would like to make a motion to discharge introductory number 42 from committee, which is a resolution confirming the appointment of the Commissioner of Environmental Services. Can I get a second?
Second.
I'm sorry. Point of clarity, President Melendez,
Uh,
on the discharge, were there 2 council members that voted against the discharge of 41?
Yes, that was, I believe, Vice President Lupien and Councilmember Martin.
Okay. I'll enter that vote into the record. Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, so now let's vote on discharging introductory number 42 from committee. All in favor, please say aye.
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 All opposed, say nay.
Nay.
No.
The motion carries.
7-2 with council members Martin and Vice President Lupien voting no.
Now let's vote on introductory number 42. Clerk Washington, please call the roll.
Councilmember Gruber,
Yes.
Councilmember Harris,
Yes.
Councilmember Lightfoot,
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember Martin,
Yes.
Councilmember Patterson,
Yes.
Councilmember Pio,
Yes.
Councilmember Smith,
Yes.
Vice President Lupien,
Yes.
President Melendez.
Yes, motion
you.
carries.
The clerk will enter the affirmative vote of 9-0 into the record.
Finally, I would like to make a motion to discharge introductory number 43 from committee, which is a resolution confirming the appointment of the Corporation Council. Can I have a second?
Second.
Now let's vote on discharging introductory number 43 from committee. All in
Can we
favor,
make,
please say.
Sorry, when would it be a time to make comments about this introductory?
Let me discharge from committee and then I'll open it up for comments.
Thank you.
Let's vote on discharging introductory number 43 from committee. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay.
Nay.
No.
Motion carries.
The clerk will enter the affirmative vote of 7-2 into the record, with Council Members Martin and Vice President Lupien voting no on the discharge of introductory number 43.
Councilmember Martin.
So I have very serious concerns about Linda Kingsley being appointed as Corporation Counsel. I'm not certain that she is dedicated to the persistence and true transparency that our city government desperately needs. During our interview, I mentioned my concerns about her track record of defending actions of the RPD in clear instances of police misconduct. Her answers did not alleviate my concerns, and I worry that in her capacity as Corporation Counsel, she would oppose crucial accountability initiatives like the PAB. I also gathered that from the answers she gave. In addition, I was given further cause for concern during our first organizational meeting immediately following my swearing in on the 3rd of January. In this meeting, Linda failed to provide adequate guidance during a vote and failed to ensure that the rules that govern our body as a whole were upheld. For these reasons, I am voting no.
Thank you. So now let's vote on introductory number. Make sure I get my numbers right.
43.
43. All in favor, please say aye.
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 All opposed, say nay.
No.
Nay.
Roll call, please.
Roll call.
Councilmember Gruber,
Yes.
Councilmember Harris,
Yes.
Councilmember Lightfoot,
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember Martin,
No.
Councilmember Patterson,
Yes.
Councilmember Pio,
Yes.
Councilmember Smith,
No.
Vice President Lupien,
Yes.
President Melendez.
Yes. Motion carries.
7-2, with Council Members Smith and Martin voting no. The clerk will enter that affirmative vote into the record.
President Melendez,
Councilmember Gruber.
may I just say that under normal circumstances, if we were not on Zoom, we would be able to congratulate everybody in person and give a clap of the hands. But the community should feel very fortunate to have Commissioner Green, Commissioner Perrin, and Corporation Counsel Kingsley working for the city. That's a tremendous thing, and congratulations to all of them.
Thank you for that. So before we conclude this meeting, per section 22 of the City Council rules passed on January 3rd, 2022, I hereby enter into the record notice that the council will be considering whether to adopt certain amendments to the rules of City Council at the next regular meeting on February 15th. The amendments include amending section 17 to clarify the process for any council member who wishes to propose legislation to the body, amending section 18 to change the committee structure to dissolve the Public Safety, Recreation, and Human Services Committee and create two separate committees, the Public Safety Committee and the Recreation and Human Services Committee, and amending section 22 and creating section 23 to clarify the process for amending the rules. The proposed amendments were provided to council members via email this evening. If there are no further business to come before the council, we are adjourned.
Good night, everyone.
Good night, everyone.
Good night,
Goodbye.
everyone.